If you are a financial advisor listening to this podcast, you are most likely interested in working with more doctor clients. If you've tried to reach out to doctor prospects and not gotten the results you wanted, you are not alone. Today, we're going to talk about the number one reason that financial advisors get stuck as they enter the medical market, and I'll show you how to get unstuck. Welcome to the Engaging Doctors podcast. If you are a financial advisor who wants to accelerate your business growth by attracting, engaging, and serving more doctor clients, you are in the right place. I'm Dr. Vicki Rackner, your host. I'm a retired surgeon who has spent the past 15 years helping financial advisors crack the physician code and reach the doctors who want and need their help. In the last episode, we laid out the compelling business arguments for working with doctor clients. It's a huge market filled with high-earning professionals who need your help. Why is it then that every day I field phone calls from frustrated financial advisors telling me that despite their best efforts, they simply can't figure out how to connect with doctors? I hear things like, well, I have a great seminar for business owners, so I tweaked it a little bit. I substituted the word doctor for business owners, but the results were terrible. Or I have a LinkedIn lead generation funnel. I tried reaching out to doctors with emails that work with business owners, but no luck. One advisor told me, I invested big money to join an elite coaching program. The ideas that I'm learning are just not working when I reach out to doctors, and I don't understand. I'm about to throw in the towel. I'm beginning to think that you just can't reach doctors. So if you have been there, you're trying to connect with these prospects whom you can help. I feel your pain. I too struggled to connect with my own prospects whom I knew I could help. So let me tell you my story. When I was in my early 20s, I was in a graduate program, and one day I fainted on my way to the bathroom. I was bleeding internally, and by the time the surgeons got into my belly, about half of my blood volume was in my pelvis. And I was so grateful to wake up that I knew I would be a doctor and save other people's lives like my own had been saved. Not surprisingly, I became a surgeon and went into private practice here in Seattle. Well, in 2000, I stepped into a family caregiver role. So I stepped away from my practice and actually wound up supporting myself by being an expert in medical malpractice lawsuits. Well, after about a year, my family caregiving came to an end, and I thought, well, what's next? Do I go back to operating? But then I thought, how many people have been a patient with a life-threatening situation, a surgeon who'd saved these people's lives, a family caregiver, and somebody who saw where care went off track? And I had an idea. I was going to be a consultant, helping doctors and patients collaborate more effectively to get better medical care at a lower cost. I thought this was a tremendous value promise, but I struggled and struggled and struggled. I once calculated that I've spent as much in my sales and marketing training as I literally did in medical school tuition. Well, one day when I was over in Europe speaking, I had an aha moment. You see, I went to plug in my laptop, but you can't do that directly in Europe because Europe is wired differently than the US. You need an adapter to make this connection. And I thought, that is it. I, as a doctor, am wired differently than the business-minded people I want to pay me for my services. And if I want to connect with them, I've got to create this adapter. So I saw the world as filled with people who are native to the land of business, I call them suits, and people who are native to the land of medicine, I call those white coats. When I finally was able to connect these two, when I was able to build the bridge between these two worlds, my results were transformed. So I've been a keynote speaker at national meetings. I'm quoted in the media on a regular basis. And I don't say this to impress you, but rather to impress upon you that the different business results I got were due to the fact that finally I understood what my buyer wanted, and I was able to conduct myself in a way that helped me get the results I wanted. Well, then 2008 rolled around, and I started hearing more and more doctors talking about their financial challenges. Some were talking about dipping into their retirement savings to meet their payroll. Others were talking about maybe filing for bankruptcy. Well, I got really curious about doctors and their money stories. In total, I've probably interviewed hundreds of doctors, and I've summarized the trends that I've found in my books, The 9 Money Mistakes That Doctors Make and The Myth of the Rich Doctor. So I saw doctors' pain, and I knew that they needed help, but I was not the person to help them. I'd made most of the mistakes that I've heard every doctor talk about. But then I had an idea. What if I could arm financial advisors with this adapter so that they could cross over into the land of medicine and help doctors? And that is what I have been doing for the past 15 years. So I've got a business engaging doctors that helps financial advisors accelerate their growth by working with more doctor clients. But I've also got another brand called Thriving Doctors, where I help doctors conduct themselves in a more business-minded way. But what that means for you is that I am in the trenches with doctors. I know what doctors want and need. I have access to all sorts of platforms that are closed to you because you're not a doctor. So I've sort of got my finger on the pulse of what's going on in the medical community. Now, you might think I'm just an anomaly. Maybe this helped me, but does it really help other people? Well, I want to tell you about a scene from one of my favorite shows, Shark Tank. I consider this part of my marketing education. Well, one day a doctor entered the Shark Tank to get funding for his company, Syndaver. He sold synthetic cadavers worldwide. This is about $1 billion industry. He'd already had millions of dollars in sales, and the sharks were all engaged. I thought, this guy is going to get a 5-shark deal. But then the question started. Tell us about your revenue. Tell us about your profitability. And unfortunately, I didn't get to coach him because on national TV he said, well, I suppose I could be making a lot of money if I wanted to, but money's not really that important to me. I'm here to make a difference. And with that answer, 4 sharks were out. He got a deal with Robert Herjavec that fell apart in a couple of weeks. Now, what is the problem here? This was a great investing opportunity, but this doctor was trying to persuade the sharks to say yes, and he didn't say the right things to inspire them to say yes. What he should have said is, I'm going to take such good care of your money and we're going to see great returns on your investment. Now, this sounds kind of silly, but imagine there's another reality show, and let's call it Surgeon's Lounge. So you as a financial advisor enter the Surgeon's Lounge. There's, 5 doctors sitting in plush leather chairs, and you want to get as many of them as possible to say yes to you and your offer. Unfortunately, most financial advisors make exactly the same mistake that the doctor did when he entered the Shark Tank. There is not a way of really connecting and telling your potential buyer what they want and need to hear. And the doctor said it on the Shark Tank. For doctors, it is not about the money. It's about service. It's about making a difference. So, conducting business with doctors follows neither the B2B nor the B2C model. I call it B2D, conducting business with doctors. And it is different than working with business-minded people. We already know that people work with people they know, like, and trust. And the statement, I like you, means I'm like you. I see part of myself reflected in you. So this leads to my number one principle for success. If you want to conduct business with doctors, conduct yourself as one. So let's just show 5 examples of how not understanding this principle that you've got to talk with doctors differently can lead to a failure to get the business results you want. All right, business mistake number 1 is a failure to fit in. Doctors behave sort of like tropical fish. They tend to congregate together and move together as a group. And they do this for the same reason that tropical fish do. It offers protection against predators. Now, most doctors, myself included, have been approached by financial predators. So we tend to see the world as filled with trusted insiders, you're one of us, and then outsiders who are potential predators. I will tell you that the rate at which your practice grows is the rate at which you build trust. So you want to be seen as a trusted insider. Well, what happens if you're not? You might have seen Quentin Tarantino's great movie, Inglourious Bastard. This movie tells the story of 2 converging plots to assassinate Nazi Germany's leadership at a Paris cinema. Well, there's a scene in a tavern in Nazi-occupied northern France in which a British commander, a former film critic who speaks fluent German, along with American soldiers, disguise themselves as German officers. Hickok's unusual accent arouses suspicion from several Nazis. While he's able to explain that away, he blows the group's cover when he orders 3 drinks and uses the hand signal for 3 as Americans do with the middle 3 fingers instead of the way that Germans do with the thumb, index, and middle finger. So this simple gesture blows their cover and precipitates a gunfight, killing everyone except 2. I saw a similar assault when I joined a financial advisor, delivering a live event to a doctor audience. Now, the MC of the event said something about doctors and dentists, and I could just feel the energy drain out of the room. You see, the audience was mostly dentists, and dentists are doctors. The MC meant to say physicians and dentists. However, that night, the financial advisor did not get a single doctor signing up to learn more about his offer. And I think we can trace it back to that simple verbal misstep of the MC. That's why in the Cracking the Physician Code Bootcamp, my signature training, we really focus on the 10 laws of physician engagement. Mistake number 2 is delivering an unappealing question. Now, you know what questions your prospects should be asking. However, you have a much better chance of success if you drop in on the conversations doctors are already having in their heads. What that means is that you have the intelligence to know what those conversations are. Further, I think a gracious way of beginning a conversation with a doctor is to offer a gift. Think about it as a hostess gift. You are asking for something that's very precious to doctors, their time and attention. If you were invited out to dinner, you would bring a little hostess gift, wine or flowers, something that the host and hostess would appreciate. A yummy treat, as I call them, that works really well is my book, The 9 Money Mistakes That Doctors Make. This is where I, as a doctor, speak to other doctors, telling them what I've noticed through my interviews with hundreds and hundreds of doctors. So this is available for you to license and give away. It's a great way of delivering an appealing message that doctors want. Mistake number 3 is moving too fast. This gets down to the question, what's the major difference between a suit and a white coat? Well, it's the metric by which success is measured. For suits, success is measured by revenue. I'm committed to helping my financial advisor clients become more profitable. One financial advisor recently said to me, Dr. Vicki, this year I 7x'd my revenue. Now, if a surgeon walked into the surgeon's lounge and said, what a great year, I 7x'd my revenue, they'd be sent to a psychiatrist. That is not how doctors talk. We measure our success by our service. How many patients have we served? What kinds of outcomes do we help patients get? So, doesn't it make sense that suits would be more willing to open up their financial kimono and disclose their numbers to you? It takes more trust for doctors to do the same. So it's important to understand that and to be patient. When you're dating to find your long-term partner, you know that certain things happen on certain dates. And if you move too fast, you can blow the whole thing. Mistake number 4 is giving up too soon. Now, I know that you would love to meet a doctor, impress them, and say, Doctor, are we a good fit? And it would be great if it happened just like that. I went to my top financial advisors and I asked them to think about their top 10 doctor clients and then turn back the hands of time. How many contacts did they have to have with this doctor before the doctor said yes? And the average was about 7 to 10 contacts. The doctor who attended your webinar may really like you and want to move forward with you, but then something happened. There's a bad patient outcome, or they got sued, or a family member got sick, and they don't reach out to you for 6 months. The big mistake is letting doctors who do not immediately ask you about your services to just discard them, to throw them away. This is sort of like throwing away the Thanksgiving leftovers. Successful advisors nurture the relationship with all of the doctors who come into their circle. Mistake number 5 is the failure to harness the power of leverage. And one of the biggest forms of leverage is a doctor's ability to open the red velvet rope and give you access to more doctors. The most influential person in a doctor's life is another doctor. When you tell stories about other doctors, or you have doctors serve on your advisory board, or bring them to speak with you, or have a doctor introduce you, magical things happen. So, let's summarize. If you have faced challenges attracting and engaging doctor prospects, you are not alone. If you want to join the thriving financial advisor who has a very successful doctor practice, it's important that you master this adapter, that you know what to do and what to say so that you attract and not repel the attention with doctors. And to drive this home, let me close with one last story. I live in Seattle, and last night we had a snowfall. In my neighborhood, the snow looked like the decorative powdered sugar dusting over a cake. It was a beautiful sight. And today, school is delayed or canceled in Seattle. As someone who grew up in Minneapolis, I always found Seattle school snow day rules amusing. See, when I was a child in the Midwest, we went to school unless there was a whiteout blizzard or an Arctic blast that brought temperatures so low the cars wouldn't start, or one time the school furnace failed. Why is school canceled today in Seattle? Well, under identical circumstances in Minneapolis, this would just be another Monday in February. The different conditions in the two cities explain the different school responses. Seattle has lots of hills. We have minimal snow removal equipment. We don't all have tires that perform well in the snow. The people who live in Seattle often have limited experience driving in the snow. If I applied the Minnesota's snow rules to today's weather conditions in Seattle, I'd hop in the car and take my kids to school. Then I'd be surprised to find the school closed and locked. If I applied the Seattle snow rules under identical circumstances in Minnesota, I would assume that school was canceled and keep my children home. This would result in an unexcused absence. So you've got to make sure you understand how the local rules work. And the rules for marketing to suits and the rules to marketing to white coats are different. The biggest mistake financial advisors make as they enter the medical market is assuming that doctors will respond to marketing messages that work well with business owners. This is simply not the case. But here's the great news. Once you understand that you need this adapter, it's very easy to acquire the knowledge and skills to conduct yourself as a medical insider. The results that you want could be closer than you think. So, here are some next steps. Subscribe to the podcast for more insider strategies on working with doctors. Go to Engaging Doctors and get on the mailing list to get regular updates about how to successfully acquire more doctor clients. I send some educational content out on a weekly basis, and often I host educational events. Next, tune in to the next podcast episode where I will lay out the 4 pillars for success in the medical market. And if you want to dive in today, I invite you to learn more about my Cracking the Physician Code Bootcamp. This is my signature training I've been tweaking for the past 15 years. Some people describe it as medical marketing school. So I will leave a link in the show notes. I want to thank you for your time and attention. This is the right place and the right time to mine the treasures in the medical market. Stay tuned, and I will show you how.